but this might be one of the worst, like, pieces of content you have to pay for that I've ever played in a video game. I paid to watch loading screens. Just think about that. Think about that. I paid $10 to watch loading screens. I know that intro clip sounds like hyperbole, but seriously, Bethesda just released a loading screen DLC for Starfield. And no, not to fix the millions of loading screens that you're going to experience over the course of your playthrough. No, they added a new form of loading screen and disguised it as a feature called free lanes. I think it's obvious to everyone that Bethesda wants to pull an in-goodening of Starfield or something to that effect, much like both No Man's Sky and Cyberpunk 2077 went through. But as I've said several times over the past few years, it is impossible to fix Starfield. It is rotten to the core. And it's not like they put an honest effort to fix the myriad of problems in the first place. No, the Terran Armada DLC is one of the laziest pieces of expansion content I've ever played in any video game. It is just 5 straight hours of shooting galleries in the same 2 copy-pasted ship dungeons and a series of space battles, which you're going to be struggling with quite a bit if you never upgraded your ship or put any perk points into the ship combat. With no story whatsoever. I'm serious. There is basically no plot at all in a fucking Bethesda game of all things. No, they want to turn Starfield into a extremely mediocre looter shooter. I guess you could argue it always kind of was exactly that, because there was no effort put into the lore or the character backgrounds or anything to make it memorable. But this DLC feels like a parody of Starfield to me, in the sense that Bethesda's response to all of the criticism of Starfield's universe and the bad writing, etc., all the things I covered in my review a few years ago, was to just not write anything at all. The villains, the Terran Armada, are just space Nazis. Yeah, it's basically the Empire from Star Wars, except there's no Darth Vader, there's no Emperor, there's no fucking characters at all. The only conversation I ever had with the villain faction in this DLC was at the very end. And you won't even believe this, dude. They're led by a black woman. Yes, the space fascists are led by a black woman. I swear I'm not making this shit up. And those of you who watched my stream on this game will probably be asking the question, wait a minute, you actually finished this? Yes, I did. Even though it was pretty apparent we'd seen everything there was to see by the 2-hour mark, I did go back and finish the DLC for no real reason. So if you're expecting some kind of in-depth analysis of this, there's nothing to analyze in the first place. You could certainly argue to maintain the integrity of my critique that I should have checked out all of the features in the Free Lanes update and the new bounty faction quests. Yeah, go fuck yourself. I'm not spending another minute playing this giant piece of shit. The obvious short answer of this review is no, Starfield isn't fixed. It's impossible to fix. It is worth no one's time. If anything, this game's very existence should just convince you to never buy a Bethesda product again. Do not, under any circumstances, buy Elder Scrolls 6. Though I doubt any of the casual gamers who stumble upon this video, if any even do at this point, will listen to that advice. They'll just mindlessly consume the next product as soon as the hype machine gets rolling. But because this video can't be 3 minutes long, I suppose I should talk about the Terran Armada DLC in some amount of detail. Something you're going to notice immediately is that no time or budget was put into this whatsoever. I wouldn't be surprised if this entire quest line was outsourced to India, because there is no human touch to be found here. It could have been AI generated. The expansion is so low effort that it begins from a random news broadcast on Aquila City, the Wild West area of the game. You just stand with a crowd of people as you listen to the news cover an evil space fascist group that wants to use an army of robots to unite the various colonies together under one nation. And that's almost all of the detail you get on this evil faction. I'm not even kidding. There is a backstory about the big space colony war that happened before the events of the game, and how this led to the origins of the Terran Armada is just absolutely idiotic.
I have no doubt you know of the Colony War. During that time, there was a large battle between a Free Star and United Colony fleet at the edge of the settled systems. However, instead of following through with the battle, the commanders of the respective fleets met with one another. Last we knew, both fleets vanished side by
What,
side.
they talk no jutsu'd each other and flew off into the sunset?
But as we've since discovered, they banded.
Oh yeah, that totally makes sense. Has that ever happened in history?
We don't know why they left the battle, or why they have now returned. All we know is the threat they currently pose.
Now again, I don't think anyone expects good writing from Starfield, but that's it, dude. They never elaborate how the hell two opposing sides just kind of left and then banded together, and then fast forward however many years later and they have a giant robot army. The very first mission in this DLC is a copy-paste job of the cruise ship mission from the main game, which was some kind of heist. I only vaguely remember it, but I do remember this layout one-to-one. They couldn't even design an original dungeon for the first major mission of their DLC. So as you explore the ship, you find out basically everyone is dead. They were killed by the Terran Armada's robots. After gunning down the clankers, you make your way to the vault, and you end up getting trapped inside by the very person who recruited you on this mission, and then you end up reprogramming one of the evil robots and it becomes your companion, Delta. Ironically, this robot character probably has more personality than most of the humans in this game, but I wouldn't say he's particularly well written. Some have called him a discount IG-88 because he's a robot that talks a bunch of shit to organics, saying he's smarter than you, more capable than you in robot speak. This leads to you going to the secret headquarters of Void, a mysterious CIA or Mossad-like organization, except their headquarters is like a tiny room under a bar in the middle of nowhere. If you're wondering if this faction ever gets expanded on in any form, no. But they're the good guys, don't worry, Goy, you should do everything they tell you to. So they basically tell us to go die for space Israel because the evil fascies want to unite all the humans under one interstellar nation, I guess. They even tease a little bit that what we're doing is pretty shady, but there's no player choice here. I'm sure you're asking, can I join the villains? No. Of course not, Chud. This is fucking predictive programming to make you think your political opposition are faceless robots, which the left already thinks that about the right, so this is just yet another piece of media affirming their beliefs. And the funny thing is, our character has the option to just go along with all of this, even though he just heard of the Terran Armada like 5 minutes ago. There's a shit ton of openly racist dialogue options you can pick, which is admittedly pretty funny. And then the rest of this DLC is literally spent doing Radiant quests. I'm not kidding, dude. They added a new type of Radiant quest called an incursion, where basically you lose the ability to fast travel, yes really, incredibly annoying, until you blow up this big ship that's in the area. And to do that, you basically have to get into a short space battle where you just shoot a couple other Terran ships. Again, if you don't have a good ship yourself, or you don't have any perks in the spaceship tree, and it's a 3v1 with no cover, get ready to fucking die, by the way. This DLC is meant for level 50 players. I was level 46, I believe, when I started, which, trust me, that was plenty for any of the on-foot gunfights. I actually demolished almost every single enemy in this DLC, outside of a few extremely tanky robots that looked exactly the same as the other robots. They just had 10 times more health and did like triple the damage for no apparent reason. Good difficulty design, of course. But as for the space battles, I actually ended up dying at least 5 times over the course of this DLC, which was obviously really annoying because I just wanted to get through this as fast as possible. Anyway, once you've defeated the ships, you then board the big ship. You go through a randomly generated dungeon that has like 100 copy-paste enemies in it, most of which are robots that are not even fun to shoot at. They also have the most generic design ever. It just looks like a Boston Dynamics, like, combat robot. Kind of like Chappie, if you remember that movie. So you just kill 1,000 Chappies, a few humans that don't even try to talk to you at any point. So they might as well not even be people either. I'm certainly not convinced. You steal some kind of data cube, and then you set the ship to self-destruct. And you do that 6 times over the course of the DLC. 3 times for minor incursions and 3 times for major incursions. What's the difference between a minor and a major? No idea. I guess the enemies are a little stronger. That's it. Outside of these 6 Radiant quests, there's only 2 or 3 real story missions. The only one that was mildly interesting is where you have to save a genius ginger scientist woman who invented these robots. Yep, not even kidding, female inventor. A lot of girl bosses in this DLC. The ginger scientist woman is the only one with even slightly a moral compass, saying that yes, there are normal people on the Terran side. What do you mean? Are you saying not all the Germans were Nazis? Well, you can't say that. You can't say that. That's not politically correct. Which just leads to one choice in the ending that ultimately doesn't matter, because you know we're never going to hear from the Terran Armada again, especially because there's no way in hell there's ever going to be a Starfield 2. Oh, and I doubt I even have to clarify this, but no, you can't really ask her any meaningful questions about the Terran Armada, why they're evil, why they suddenly decided to take over the rest of the galaxy, or any of that stuff. No, they just woke up one day and decided to take over Poland, I guess. The actual structure of this mission is incredibly annoying, by the way. Half of it is spent just watching this ginger bitch hack computer terminals, as if there wasn't enough padding in this DLC already. Since Starfield at its core is essentially just a mediocre looter shooter, and as I mentioned, most of this DLC is just procedurally generated dungeons, you might be wondering if there are some new guns to play around with at least. There's one. Yes, they added just one new gun, and it is just a space AR that fires AK ammo. They couldn't even come up with a new gun. Once again, this feels like Bethesda responding to criticism, not by improving anything, but by just giving up. Because we all know how stupid the guns look in this game, and in most of Bethesda's games, if we're being honest. And maybe if you're high on that copium, you're telling yourself, well, at the very least, these robot enemies might have some new attacks or different tactics or something. Again, no. They're just reskinned humans. They don't have any unique functions. In fact, they have the same movement animations as humans. They'll even run away and take cover like several rooms away. These are fucking machines, man. And there's no giant mech fight. There's like a robot dog that shows up one time, but you never fight it as an enemy. At the very least, your companion robot gets an upgrade in the second major mission that gives him like pseudo starborn powers. I think it's obvious to literally anyone that the Starfield universe is lacking in even the slightest amount of creativity, because they're going for NASA punk, which is a sort of pseudo-realism. Even though we're fucking space gods that travel between dimensions and have superpowers, which are just reskins of Skyrim shouts. Yeah, none of it makes any sense when you think about it for more than 2 seconds. But yeah, shooting robots is no different from shooting humans. Big surprise. So something I haven't even mentioned yet is how we get to these incursions in the first place. So part of the free update of the Free Lanes DLC is that you can now fly in between solar systems. Oh my god. No way, dude. I can fly my ship in space. That's just what I wanted. Wrong. Wrong. That's not what people asked for. They asked to be able to fly to the planet. You know, like No Man's Sky did a decade ago. The creation engine can't handle that shit. So now you can just fly in between loading screens, which is a super long Omega level loading screen. It blew my mind that probably about a third of this DLC's total length is just flying in between objectives. Otherwise, it would be a 2-hour-long DLC, dude. I'm not even kidding. Some of these free lane travels in cruise mode took upwards of 5 full minutes of doing nothing, just staring at the screen. Is this the future of entertainment in video games? I almost feel bad shitting on movie games in the past, because at least you are watching a movie or something. Even fake loading screens where you're squeezing through a crevice is only a few seconds at a time. This is minutes of nothing happening, to the point where I thought I was doing something wrong, like maybe there was a secret way to be able to fast travel to these incursions. Nope. You have to go through the cruise mode. Now, of course, if I'm being completely fair, I do have to explain that yes, there are random events as you fly in empty space, which usually is just like random enemy ships that attack you for existing. Maybe there's some other random events, much like there is in the main game, where you just travel to a solar system and then some NPC talks to you about something, maybe leads you toward a quest. I honestly have no idea, and I wasn't about to waste even more time time finding out. I think this is, without exaggeration, the most pathetic form of padding out a piece of downloadable content I have ever seen, and I doubt the vast majority of people will ever know that Bethesda did something this heinous, because who the hell is gonna pick Starfield back up for more than 5 minutes? People are just gonna realize, oh, it's the same dog shit video game they dropped 3 years ago. If there's one takeaway from this DLC, it's that Bethesda does not give a single fuck. So don't buy Elder Scrolls 6. I'm gonna say that at least one more time in this video. Anyway, back to the story, if you can even call it that. So after fighting your way through 6 incursion dungeons, it's time for the climax to take down the Terran ship that is in our solar system, Sol. How fitting. And the final battle is absolutely pathetic. Again, no surprise given the rest of this DLC. You have to shoot 4 bullet sponges while there's an epic space battle happening in the background. Thankfully, the enemy AI doesn't shoot you constantly in the back while you're taking out these shield generator things. And then you just shoot the flagship for like 5 straight minutes. Seriously, look at this. This is all I did in the final space battle. And then you're finally allowed to board the ship. And at this point, I was so fed up with the combat, I was just slowing down time and running past everybody. And then we finally meet the big bad of the Terran Armada, and it's a black woman. They couldn't even have like a Darth Vader ripoff or some kind of space wizard or some shit. Maybe a Starborn? That would at least fit into the main plot of Starfield. Nope, it's just a random black woman. And you can only ask her one question about the Armada, and then she just tells you to fuck off, and I guess you can talk no jutsu her. I didn't even try. I just shot her in the face with 100 bullets and killed her instantly. And I probably don't even need to point this out to you guys. I'm sure you all noticed all of the girl bosses and even just a short DLC with basically no story. The leader of Void is a chain-smoking brown woman. The lead scientist that invented the robots is this ginger woman, and of course the leader of the bad guys is a black woman. I guess the future really is female. So after filling Shaniqua with lead, we're given the one and only choice in this entire DLC. We can either reprogram all of the robots to attack any human on site, therefore having the Terran Armada destroy itself from within, or we just destroy the flagship and have it disable all the robots, I guess. Obviously, I went for the kill everyone option. I don't care about any morals in this universe where none of these people are even fucking human. They're all golems. Then we blast our way out of the flagship, it blows up, and your reward for doing all of this is the space feds give you like 20,000 credits, which I had 300,000 by the way, so it was completely pointless. What an awesome DLC. Certainly worth picking Starfield back up, blowing 10 bucks on this. I guess the only upside is that if you, for some godforsaken reason, bought the Ultimate Edition of this, or whatever it's called, it does come with that for free. But you're paying in time, man. I've said this many times. Bethesda should have paid me to play this shit, because it was suffering. It was one of the most boring experiences of my life. At least with the main Starfield review I made like 3 years ago, it was actually fun to make that video because there was so much to make fun of. But I guess Bethesda, being little bitches, got bullied so hard that they didn't even put anything cringy in this DLC outside of, you know, the leader of the Terran Armada. And even then, she only has like 5 lines, so who cares? It's crazy that I never ended up talking about the first major DLC for Starfield, Shattered Space, because I thought there was almost nothing to talk about because it was so uninteresting. And somehow Terran Armada topped it in every single way. This is one of the laziest pieces of content probably ever produced for a video game outside of loot boxes and skins. I wish it was insufferable woke slop. I wish it had a bunch of insane bugs. But no, this is just a copy-paste job, dude. There's almost nothing new in this DLC. I don't care if $10 is basically nothing in modern gaming because a Fortnite skin costs 20 or whatever the hell. Doesn't matter. Fuck Bethesda. This is a giant pile of trash. Stay far away from this game. Hopefully, I never have to touch it again. That's about it. See you next time, guys. I'm only human after all. You're a fucking bug man. You're gonna die.